What's up? What's up? Real MVPs, Ricky Widmer here, and I am one of your hosts for a brand new show here on MVP, a new live show, and I am joined, as always, my main co-host for this show, Dave Oster. Dave, how you doing?
Doing great. Comment section already ripping on my setup.
Already ripping on the white wall. Like, we just got to get Macklemore to come in and just fucking have white walls be your theme song, because you got the white walls behind you.
Has he announced his DMCA? Like, he's not going after anybody yet?
No.
I know a lot of other artists have, but
no, I haven't heard.
Macklemore would be one of those guys.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard anything about Macklemore since he was on Dave.
He was working on becoming a magician.
Really? Like dropping music completely?
No, he was working on becoming a magician, but also his new album would be based around that somehow.
Okay.
I was reading an article like a couple months ago. I was like, I'm intrigued. I don't know where it's going, but I'm intrigued.
The new David Copperfield Macklemore. I almost said John Macklemore, but I can't remember his first name.
That ain't right.
Because I know the guy that he does songs with, isn't it Ryan? Does the songs with him? But yeah, enough about Macklemore, because we're not talking about music. We're talking about sports here. And this is a brand new addition to the MVP family. The MVP, the new look MVP too, because you might have noticed we weren't live. We didn't make content for a whole 2 months. Dave, I don't know about you, but I was going a little stir crazy, playing a lot of WoW. So I guess that kind of like took away some of the angst.
With addiction.
I do have a problem with gaming addiction. Joe Rogan needs to help me with that, apparently, because he's been talking about gaming addiction. But no, this is our live sports show where every single weekday, Monday through Friday, Dave and I are going to run you through the best sports topics of that day or the day before, depending on, or the weekend that happened, which would be the case for the Monday shows. We're going to have a lot of things planned for this. We're going to, when Patreon gets rolled out again, we're going to introduce our new tiers. When that rolls out, one of them is fan participation. So join the Patreon page. You'll be able to participate in the show. We're going to have the Twitch chat where we're going to be bringing in a couple of times on this show. And I'm very excited for this, Dave. I don't know about you, but I've been antsy all day waiting for this first show.
I've been working all day, but I am hyped for the show.
And we are going to start. We got a jam-packed show. We're talking about today some big things. The Rock buying the XFL. We're going to be looking at the NBA. And, of course, we'll start the show with the big one, though, and that is the MLB. Or should I say the shit show, which is the MLB. Because first it started out, this is a little bit of a timeline. First it started out way back, what was the date of this? July 30. So end of July, a couple weeks ago, or a week ago, I want to say. Yeah, it was a week ago. The Marlins had 19 total COVID-19 cases. It impacted the Marlins, it impacted the Phillies, it impacted the Orioles, and it impacted the Yankees. 4 teams were basically almost shut down for a couple series. Then we learned, and today we learned updated numbers, but a couple days ago we learned the Cardinals have numerous cases. It's going to affect the Brewers, obviously. That series was canceled. The Tigers game that series is canceled, and it might affect the Cubs also, because the Cardinals would play the Cubs on Friday. MLB seeing if the Cardinals can get back to action by Friday, but they have 13 new cases. And the thing I want to mention is Rob Manfred, Dave, because the quote from the worst commissioner in sports, I'm going to say, he was talking to ESPN's Carl Ravitch, and this is the quote he said about the positive cases that led to the postponement of 17 games in 10 days. He said, "We are playing. The players need to be better, but I am not a quitter in general, and there is no reason to quit now. We have to be fluid, but it is manageable." Dave, I'm just going to ask you straight up. Should the MLB season be canceled? Should the MLB cancel its 2020 season?
I think that it is a matter of time before they come to the decision on their own. But yes, the season is a shit show, as you alluded to off the intro of this. I think the season was already set up to be a failure from day one. They made the bold decision that they would host games locally with no fans in attendance instead of taking an approach that both the NHL and NBA have taken and taking over a couple of cities, setting up bubbles, secure areas where they can have their teams still get that level of competition. You still get the ability to play and, have a decision on who's the best that season. But you expose yourself to so many more risks by having those local hosted games and all the travel and all the openness of the players being able to go wherever they want in between these games. Because as we've heard, I mean, there were rumors about, I believe it was the Cardinals players going to a casino or something. There's it's a little mind-boggling to think about that. What did they think was going to happen? I mean, just in what universe do they live in? Like, the numbers in America are where they're at. They're trending in the wrong direction. And these people are expecting to play sports in the open. Like, what? Yeah. None of this adds up to me. It just, Rob Manfred is just a stooge.
Well, I mean, the thing I want to throw out too is you mentioned the NBA and the NHL, because I will say this goes for all sports.
And the MLS. I always forget them, but yes.
But I was the biggest person before sports even started of like, we don't need a season. Like, player safety and human safety should come first. I've had numerous conversations with Soapy even, where it's like, he threw out the one conversation where he's like, God forbid, what if Giannis got COVID? And it derails his career because the lung capacity, you like lose 25% of your lung capacity, they say. But the thing I'll say, NBA, although it just started Thursday, so it's like freshly newer, but they had the scrimmage games, we haven't had a breakout. And today, ESPN even put out that the NHL has had no positive tests in the bubble. League has administered over 7,000 tests since the 24 teams arrived on July 26th, and they have 0 tests. Yeah. And it's like, we're seeing 2 leagues that are vastly, like, I think the NHL is doing it, like, the NHL is different because they made the right decision to host their games in Canada.
Yeah. Funny how it works out.
When the MLB was like, oh, we're going to have Toronto, Canada said, no. You're not bringing any of that in here. Toronto's the Blue Jays have to play their games in your country. They ain't coming here. Because the NHL had 2 bubbles. Yep. And in the NBA, they have rules in place. Oh, you go to a strip club and you break the bubble? Oh, guess what? You're going to have to quarantine for this amount of days. Just to make sure you don't infect anybody and we don't have another outbreak. The other thing I think is just asinine is... I was talking to Brandon Swanson of MVP. He was kind of texting me about this, and he even said he's like, his point of view was like, it's on the players. Like you mentioned, the Cardinals, the rumor is they went to a casino. Like, the players should even know, hey, we're in a pandemic. Maybe I don't make that decision. But I mean, I know it's just hearsay. I know it's a report. Like,
but I think at the end of the day,
there wasn't a picture like Lou Will at the strip club.
It wasn't Lou Will bad, but at the end of the day, they're not being told they can't do things by the government, whether it's national, regional, local. There are different rules in every state for what you can and can't do, and as these players are traveling from city to city, and even on their off days, like now that they have literally like no off days. I think at this point there's supposed to be like 66 games or 60 games in 66 days or something, but like with all the people out at this point, they're not getting one. But the point is, like, there are no rules that are being standardized. So if you're saying it's on the players for being like, oh well, you shouldn't have gone, I'd be like, well, at my level, like, nobody's telling me I can't go to these places. Masks aren't even required everywhere. So like, there's just so much. As frustrating as that is. I mean,
like, just asinine that masks are not required, but that's a different discussion.
Let's not prevent the spread of the disease easily here. Let's not do that. As stupid as that is to say, I agree that, yes, the players are definitely the ones who are doing this themselves and they're spreading it. But if the league isn't doing everything in their power to prevent them, then can the league really complain, is my thought.
And that's the point I said to Brandon, where Brandon was like, oh, it's on the players. He even said, like, oh, they should be fined if they break containment. They should be quarantined. But, like, I made the point to him as, like, you got to treat them like kids almost, where The kid doesn't need an absent cool parent at this point in Rob Manfred. They need a tough parent that's going to say, no, this is the rules. You break the bubble, you get quarantined. It puts the lotion on the skin or else it gets the quarantine again, Dave. That's just how it works.
I mean, I remember reading, was it the NHL teams were going to get massive fines for any player caught outside of the bubble? It was like, I think it was like 150,000 or something like that.
I think that's also, like, don't quote me on this. Obviously, I don't know. But part of me wonders if that's even Canada, too, being like to the NHL, hey, we've done a good job of keeping this disease kind of under wraps and keeping the numbers low. We don't want an outbreak. And if there is, we're basically going to come after you. So maybe it's the NFL kind of saving their own butt. I don't know.
Thanks, Serby, for the quarantine Buffalo Bill call out from Ricky.
Yeah, hell yeah. It puts the mask on again or else it gets quarantined again. The other thing with Rob Manfred, last thing I'll bring up with him before we segue into another bubble conversation, was so the thing that these coronavirus tests, or I should say positive cases, the problem that it presents is that some teams aren't going to make the full 60 games. We've got the Yankees, like I said, Yankees, Orioles, Phillies, and Marlins have missed games. Cardinals, Tigers, Brewers, and maybe the Cubs could miss games. And Manfred was asked, well, hey, what's going to happen if, like, it comes down, let's say the Yankees. They're behind the Red Sox by 2 games. Oh, if they would have played the 2 games and won, they would have been in the playoffs. And this is what he said, and I can't believe he said this. He said, we've got to be flexible on that. Look, this is one of the reasons that we revisited the issue off the expanded playoffs. If it turns out that some guys play 60, some guys play 58, they have this new thing called winning percentage. We can sort that out. Just the way he said, ooh, we have this new thing called winning percentage. Like, yeah, if I win 10 of 30 games, but then I have another team that wins, what would that be, 30 of 90 games? Yeah, one's going to seem worse than the other, although they're the same winning percentage. One has 30 more losses, or 60 more losses than the other team.
This is not the man you want leading your league. And unfortunately, he's the man they have. It's incredible what he says publicly. I think that it's almost comical how much he's affecting the NFL too, because you have to think that Goodell's over there, like calling him up, just being like, "Shut the hell up! Like whatever you're doing, just run it by me before you say anything publicly, because you are making this so much worse on me than you are on anyone else."
Or Goodell's sitting there going, hey, keep running your mouth. People are going to hate you more than me, and I'm no longer going to be seen as the worst commissioner in sports.
Yeah, but I don't know how football happens then. Like, if this is baseball, like, what's football's only, twice the size on the teams? Actually, 3 times, because you have coaching staffs.
And I'm sorry, Adam Silver's just sitting there going, keep running your mouth. You're making me look great. You're making me look like the best commissioner in the entire league.
He already is. But it is absolutely astounding how poor Rob Manfred represents the league.
Yep.
And how it just seems like there's no... I don't know, let me ask you. Yeah. Do you think this season finishes in any sort of capacity? No?
In typical Ricky fashion, I answer the question before you answer.
Yeah, I say I just try to be inclusive there.
I know. Okay, let me preface it this way. I'm saying no because I feel like more teams are going to get sick to the point where they can't finish it. But then there's a part of me that says, yes, it will finish because Rob Manfred's just that hard-headed. Like, he wants the money. Well, he wants the money. He doesn't care about player safety. Like, I mean, look at what happened to Cespedes over the weekend, where, we don't know the exact reason. I'm going to guess the reason is COVID and the health, where basically overnight he had what football player was it? Charles Woodson. He had Charles Woodson syndrome, where I mention all the time. Charles Woodson said in an interview once, his final year in the league, he like woke up for a game in Detroit and like looked out the window and saw that it was cold, and he's like, I just don't want to play today.
Yeah.
And he's like, at that moment, I knew I was done. Cespedes had that same moment. The only thing is, he didn't tell the team. He told many people around him, didn't tell management that he just wasn't showing up anymore and opted out of the season. And I feel like if the season continues, I'll take your question, throw it back to you.
Sure.
Let's say the season doesn't end. Let's say Manfred is sticking with the I'm not a quitter, we're going to see this thing through.
Yep.
Do you think more players will take the Cespedes route and just after a couple games say, fuck it, I'm done. I ain't showing up to work?
I don't actually. I think MLB players are out to perform and still get their paychecks, and they will continue to show up. I don't think that's a league where I see people opting out of easily. What I do see happening is because more teams will have outbreaks of COVID-19 to the point where they're calling up so many people from the minors to fill in a roster, we're going to hit a point this season where it's just going to be line in the sand. We're starting a playoff tournament. Like something, we're already breaking the rules by doing, the 7-inning double headers as a compromise because of games missed. I think we're going to continue to reimagine the way the game's played because we do not have the ability to go the length of the season. I think that the best bet they can do is, hey, we're going to let all the teams have a chance. There's going to be a tournament. It's going to be, single elimination, whatever, best of series, and it'll build up throughout maybe. Like that's maybe the best case scenario, so that we avoid some travel unnecessarily. I don't know. I still don't. I don't agree with it. I think they should have just gone ahead and taken their Cactus League teams and built like at those locations,
like so spring training, grapefruit and cactus.
Exactly. You just use those two as the staging locations. They play their entire season there, and then guess what? You got your playoffs. You can decide on one or the other and go from there. Like that would have made it the most sense and been the safest for the players, the staff, the coaches, everybody.
And that's going to lead me into the next thing. So you mentioned the NFL. You mentioned Goodell saying shut up, basically, so you don't make me look bad.
You have to think he's thinking that.
It has to be either that or it's either one of the two. Either he's happy because Manfred looks worse than him, or he's not.
Manfred's threatening sports everywhere, basically, with his incompetence.
Yeah, and I mean the StarTribune from Minnesota has a great article where the headline read, "The NFL should learn from the MLB's mistakes and pivot to a bubble." It was written by Michael Rand, his blog RandBall on the StarTribune. And while thinking about this, Dave, you had mentioned it, I think, in our baseball talk of how do you do it with the NFL? How do you do a bubble situation? And I think I have the outline of a plan, Dave. This is Ricky's bubble idea. Here's the big sticking point, though. This is the one thing I can't get around.
Yep.
Teams are huge.
Yeah.
Basketball teams, 13 players, couple coaches. 18. Well, 18, but NFL teams are
all in,
53?
you're at 25. Yeah, all in at the NBA level, you're 25 with staff.
You got 53 players. NFL, how many coaches? They're
giving extended rosters because of course COVID, so you can't just have 53 on your roster. So you're gonna likely have 60, maybe more than that. I mean, you got positional coaches, so we're looking at maybe 75 people for an NFL team, plus any supporting staff for that team. I mean, that's so many people.
So here's my idea.
How's it gonna work?
Here's my idea. Yeah. That's the only thing I don't know. Here's what I do know. Okay. What I would do is I would almost say that, okay, this season, because of COVID, we're changing the rules. We're going to do a season that we've never done before. They've already gotten rid of the preseason this year, so we're not going to have a preseason at all.
Big loss for everybody there.
Yeah, big loss for everyone. But what I would do is go World Cup soccer style with your scheduling. You have 8 divisions.
Yeah.
You have 8 bubbles to start. And here's the bubbles that I'm thinking about. The AFC East, you've got 2 teams in New York, 1 in Boston. Stay the fuck away from Florida. You take one of them and you make that the Northeast bubble. Yep. Then you have basically you're taking teams and you're going, okay, we can get a bubble location in this team. So each team is kind of regionally located. Every team would play 6 games and you would just play your division. So, for example, NFC North, that's where we're from. I'm a Vikings fan. You're a Bears fan.
Yep.
So, for example, the Bears would play 2 games against the Packers, 2 against the Vikings, 2 against the Lions. That's the only games you get. You get 6 games to try to basically finish top 2 in your division.
Mm-hmm.
Then what you do is each conference is 4 teams. You take 2 from each 4. You have 8 teams. That's your 2 playoffs. Then you move those 8 bubbles, the 2 from each one, to 2 separate bubbles. You have an NFC bubble and an AFC bubble. You're going to have to do the whole quarantine thing before the bubble, which I don't think is a big deal. Who cares? You basically get a bye week for making the playoffs. Then you basically have the playoffs just like we have in the NBA, except it's 1 game, where it's basically 8 teams seeded, you go all the way down, and then your last bubble is the Super Bowl, and you play that game. That's how I would do it. You still get football, you keep everyone safe, you kind of limit travel, because for the most part, the divisions are close together. Like, there are some examples of teams where, let me see if I can find one.
Seattle.
Maybe Seattle to Arizona, but like if you're bringing them to one location, you're not worried about travel.
Are you saying that, okay, so let's use the NFC North as an example. Are you saying that all our games will be played at,
let's say Chicago was the
Stadium,
bubble?
Or,
Bingo.
okay, that was my question. It was like,
every division has their own bubble, has their own
who's
city
going to decide
bubble.
which team has the hosting rights? Because in the NFC North, I'd be like, I would want the Vikings to have it because it's a dome, so you can play at, in best conditions at all times. Even though I'm a Bears fan, I'm like, I don't know, man. The outside kind of might give us an advantage. Lambeau, I'm sure they're thinking the same thing.
I mean,
so that's where it turns into politicking, because it's like, okay, so dome teams only get to host it, and then you're just rotating, basically 4 hotels worth of NFL staff at that place. And I mean, at that point, what are you going to do? 3 games a week or 2 games a week, 3 games a week?
I mean,
2 games a week. Yeah, that's all you can do.
Yeah, but I mean, you could also then have games.
Ties. Do you go points allowed? Points.
I keep the tiebreakers just like they are, because for example, the Bears, they're gonna play 6 games. They're gonna have 2 games against everybody in the division. I would then and if you really want to go that way, you can then.
If there are 2, 3, and 3 teams.
You could go to
4 and 2, 3 and 3, 3 and 3, 1 and.
You know what? I like the points 4, because isn't that what they do in the World Cup? Isn't it? If there's a tiebreaker, it's goals scored that breaks it.
I think so.
Why not do that? Then it gives incentive to kind of score points, to kind of
what about defensive teams that are we eke by with a 13-10 wins?
You win by scoring points.
Point differential. How about just point differential?
Or that too. That could work.
I think that's fair. Point differential should work.
I mean but that's a sticking point that's I don't think a huge one, where it's it could easily be done for a tiebreaker. But that's what I would do. The hardest thing then you would have to do, and I say hardest because it truly is finding the 8 cities. Well, 8 for the first round for the divisions, 2 for the conferences, 1 for the Super Bowl. Finding the 11 bubbles that you're going to use. I mean, and you could kind of reuse bubbles. Let's say, where's the Super Bowl this year? Super Bowl 2020. Is it in LA? Is that
2021?
I typed in 20. Of course, it gives me. It's in Tampa. Fuck that. We're not going to Tampa this year.
Yeah. The last place people want to be right now is Tampa.
Basically, I would have next year's Super Bowl. So what I would do is I would switch this year's and next year's Super Bowls, where I would have it in LA this year and then have it in Raymond James Stadium in the next year. Hey, when COVID's done, we're still going to have it in Raymond James, but you guys are getting pushed down the line because I just can't have teams go to Florida. I can't have teams play in Florida.
Rumor on Pat McAfee's show that Goodell had actually booked the stadium for multiple weeks after.
Okay.
So like insurance policies kind of style.
Yeah.
So it seems like they're pretty much keyed in at that location for the Super Bowl. It's just the date may change depending on delays throughout the season.
But I mean, at the same time, when I say you can't do it in Florida, the NBA is doing it in Florida, so I guess that doesn't matter if you keep everyone quarantined and like in a bubble.
Yeah, and again, that'll be 6 months from now, 5 months from now. I mean, like,
Yeah.
a lot has changed in the last 4 months. Who's to say things don't trend better after
Get better or get worse? We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is you have to play it by ear. Like, I don't want to force people to play a sport for entertainment, risking their lives if they're not comfortable with it. So, I don't know. It's a balancing act.
Well,
it
and
truly
that's
is.
also why, I mean, we're probably going to talk about this either on Thursday's show or Friday's show, depending on where it is, because they're still weighing out the date. But either this Thursday or this Friday is the deadline for players to say, fuck it, I'm not playing this year. And
Correct.
opt out of it. Like we've seen CJ Mosley, Eddie Goldman from the Bears, Jamal Adams have all opted out. So like we don't know how many other players are going to choose to do so. I saw OBJ today said that he is going to play if we have
Gardner
a season.
Minshew and Matt Stafford were placed on the COVID reserve list, which means they were in contact with or
they
may
haven't.
have one or the other, but they don't have to disclose that information at this time.
I mean, I hope they don't have it because COVID's not anything I would even wish on my worst enemies. With how bad it is, I still wouldn't wish it. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Like, I mean, maybe the flu, but not COVID. But yeah, that anything else about the NFL bubble?
No, I think we kind of hit it all as far as what's practical and what's not. I think one way or the other, it's a massive undertaking.
Yeah.
Not only from like a booking standpoint, but just trying to get teams to agree that this is something that can be done. I think. Yeah. But it does seem like players want to play. I mean, that's for the vast majority have not opted out.
I feel like not everyone, but for the most part, the line you say players going to play is true. Because the one thing I didn't mention in the MLB one that I'll mention now is I was listening to Ozzie Guillen on one of the Sox post games, and he mentioned like Cuban players and Latin American players. He goes like, if there's going to be a season, like they're going to want to play. He was talking about last year. It was an old one from last year where he's like, hey, they should have called up Luis Robert because, hey, even if like he goes back home during the offseason, it's like, hey, I was a major leaguer for a little bit. And like guys are just going to want to like be happy to play because they love playing for the game.
Contract bullshit related.
Yeah, basically. But yeah, I feel like most players are going to, if given the opportunity, are going to play because they love to play the sport that they are given. But we're going to pivot actually from the NFL and we're going to pivot over to the XFL because, Dave, there was some big news that happened earlier today on Monday, that the XFL now has some new owners. And this is coming from this article written by Jeff Kerr over at CBSSports.com. The XFL will be live thanks to another WWE legendary figure taking the majority stakes in the football league. But this time it's not Vince McMahon. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Redbird Capital, and Danny Garcia, who is the ex-wife of The Rock, teamed up to purchase the XFL for approximately $15 million just hours before the once bankrupt league was set for auction. Redbird Capital is an investment firm that focuses on providing flexible and long-term capital to help entrepreneurs grow their business, and the XFL will be its latest challenge. And it says Garcia, Johnson's business partner and ex-wife, will also be a stakeholder in the league. Dave, I'll ask you, what does this mean for the XFL? Good, bad, wait and see?
I mean, it's got to be good news in the fact that someone cares about this as a long-term project still. I truly believe that, had COVID not struck, it seemed like it would be a good investment. It seemed like it was off to a good start. I think they had better traction than the previous minor league football system that was being put in place. It's just the worst possible time. And I kind of feel for McMahon because that's it's not his fault this time. The first time failure, absolutely him. He didn't know how to run a business. This past time around, he had the right people around him to make decisions as far as football is concerned. In our Discord, I saw you were having a conversation, again, bringing up that it was Andrew Luck's father.
I think it's Sid Luck, right? Is that his name? Sid Luck?
Honestly, off the top of my head, I'm not 100%.
It's Andrew Luck's dad. Andrew Luck's pappy.
Yeah. He knows a thing or two about business and sports, and seemed like an interesting guy to put in that position. And again, no fault of their own. It was just it was the worst possible time to open up a new league. So I think the fact that there's a chance that the league will continue on and in some regards in the next couple of years, awesome news. I think it's huge for a lot of people that, we have if it's a summer league of football, I think a lot of people would be down for that. A lot of people can't get enough of the football. So I think it's a good thing. I mean, The Rock's name attached to it. I don't know if this is like a favorite of Vince McMahon or a pet project or like what his level of involvement will be.
The Rock is a former football player.
Yes.
Played football at the U. So like, I don't know if maybe this could just be like maybe The Rock has been trying to own an NFL team, but none of the owners have been wanting to sell the teams. But I'm excited for this only because the XFL is going to live on. Although I didn't watch it religiously like I watched the NFL, what I saw from the XFL I loved. They were doing new things. They were doing different things. They weren't afraid to kind of push the envelope. With their overtime rules, their sudden death, their like the last 2 minutes, what did they call it? Like game time or something, where there were special rules just for the last 2 minutes of the half. The thing I fell in love with was, okay, we're going to challenge the play. All right, we have a camera over the guy's shoulder, and you're hearing him discuss it with the ref. Complete transparency. So, like, they were doing things that I was like, holy shit, I wish the NFL was doing. And this just means that the XFL might also get life, because there were also some teams that there were players out there that I'm like, okay, they're fucking playing good. I'm glad they're playing good. I think Mark Trestman was actually... was his team doing good or was his team doing bad? I can't remember. I didn't think the Tampa Bay team was that good now that I think about it. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with it. This is great news for the XFL, but yet again, we'll see.
With a great call out, Mahomes could have bought the entire league in the new deal he signed. 15 mil is pretty low price, right?
Instead, he became a part-time owner of the Kansas City Royals instead. Yeah. So he bought a baseball team instead of the XFL.
Big baseball guy.
Yeah. But let's move on. The rest of the show, all NBA, Dave, right in your wheelhouse. However, we're starting off with some sad news. We're starting off with some really sad news, only because this is the small one that's probably going to be the least amount of time that we talk about.
Yeah. That's fine.
So a tweet from Adrian Wojnarowski last night. Disappointing news. Orlando Magic forward Jonathan Isaac has suffered a torn ACL in his left knee, sources tell ESPN. Isaac missed 31 games with a knee injury earlier and worked his way back for restart. A much longer rehab awaits him now. And my first feeling is I feel for Jonathan Isaac only because we were watching it live. And as soon as he landed, I was like, he felt that. He felt something pop. It was like immediately.
Shades of Derrick Rose. Mm-hmm. It was shades of Derrick Rose. He takes the hop step going up for either a lay-in or whatever it was in the lane. But you saw as soon as he landed and tried to put any pressure to explode, his leg was just not set right on the ground. Bad angle. It hurt because like Isaac is one of those guys who, if you watch him at the beginning of the year, he looked like he was going to be defensive player of the year. Like he was top 5 as far as every defensive metric. He made the Magic a different team. And then, he got hurt, super sad stuff, but he came back, bubble time. He looked good. He looked real good. That second unit with Markelle Fultz and Jonathan Isaac were flowing in those practice games. They started going a little bit in the actual game. And then, he is so talented defensively, and like he's starting to put together some sort of an offensive game. He's going to be the next guy. But then the knee, and now I'm like, I feel so bad. I
o-
honestly do.
The only silver lining here
Yeah.
is that ACL injuries aren't what they used to be. Like back in the day, it was an ACL injury was a death sentence. You got an ACL injury, your career's basically over. You're never going to be the same player again. But because of where we are medically and because of the different techniques we have and practices we have and the science behind everything, I think that Jonathan Isaac is going to make a full recovery, and I cannot wait for, of course, it's going to be long, which sucks.
I'd say the next season will be supposedly starting in December, at the latest. So that means he's missing the entirety of next year too.
You think he'll miss the whole? Well, do you think he'll miss the whole? Yeah, it would be because even if he takes like,
and I think that changes a lot of plans for the Magic.
But
because
there are people that have come back from ACL injuries in 6 months. Now that's like the quickest timetable that we've ever seen for people.
There's some freaks of nature out there, and maybe Isaac's one of them. Maybe he goes over to Germany, gets whatever crazy surgery.
It's like 6 months to a year is the timeline usually.
Yeah, I don't know that it will happen for him. Wait, it's August 3rd, right? Today's August 3rd?
Yep, August 3rd.
Monday, August 3rd. So September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. Yeah, that's close. He might be one of those guys who would be eligible for playoff time, but it's like, do you bring the guy back for a run at the playoffs? Do you not?
Depends on how good the Magic are next year.
The Magic, but that's what I'm saying. Like the Magic plan-wise definitely changed because the entire offseason was talks around Aaron Gordon being traded, and because they have Chuma Okeke waiting in the wings coming off of his own injuries.
Yes.
Now what are you going to do? I mean, I love Chuma. He was one of my rising stars going into the tournament. He played fantastic up until the point where his body gave up on him.
Yeah.
So it's like, are you going to roll forward with those two guys as your future? A lot of questions for the Magic day. It's a sad day, but wish the best for Jonathan Isaac. He's definitely a high character guy, and I think if anybody can come back from this and continue on an insane career arc, it's him.
I can't wait to see. I feel like at the best case scenario, we see him first playoff game for the Magic next year. But if not, I feel like he'll take the whole year and he'll come back the season after and he'll pick up right where he left off. He's going to put in as much work as he did this time to get better from this ACL injury.
Maybe the additional time off, he keeps working on a shot in his handles. He's already got the frame to be something special in the league. He's got the defense. He gets a consistent shot going. He's in scary territory.
But Dave, we are going to move on yet again. And before we get into our first NBA topic, we're going to bring in a reoccurring segment that fast break fans know and love. This has been a segment. This has been a brainchild from Sean Anderson. And I texted you today. I actually put it on the sheet last night as I was putting it together because I'm like, I loved doing these segments. And number two, there was a part of me that is like, okay, so Sean is no longer, so Sean's not with MVP, but he's always welcome back. Like it's like he's a part of the family still. Yeah. And I wanted to keep Sean's memory alive, which sounds really bad. It's like, holy shit,
it really
Sean's died.
He's okay. Sean's doing okay.
Sean is doing great from what I hear. We texted him the other day in our Wet Boys chat because that's what our text group is called. And with that, we're going to go into Wet Boys, Dave. We used to just have it labeled for the NBA, but now it's for everything. So it's not just the dampest of dudes, the soggiest of shooters. It's the dampest of dudes, the soggiest of shooters, maybe the soggiest of sluggers, some moist men. These are the Wet Boys, the guys that had great performances that Dave and I want to give a little bit of extra love to. And Dave, I'm going to, as always, I'm going to let you take the floor first. And who will be the first Wet Boy of MVP Sports Live?
So this was an incredibly difficult decision because we are a couple days back into basketball. And this is our first episode of this very special show. So I was talking to Ricky, I was like, was it a daily thing? Are we going, he's like, well, for the Mondays, you have the whole weekend with us, which in my mind, I'm like, well,
you have how it'll work, you have from Friday, Saturday, Sunday for the Monday shows.
Technically, I mean, basketball started on to some.
Yeah, and we didn't do a show, so yeah.
But yeah, like it's one of those situations where there's just having basketball back. I mean, my wet boy unofficially is Adam Silver for pulling this shit off. I mean, he deserves all the applause, all the credit. Everybody
honorary
around
wet
him,
boy, honorary wet boy.
Everything around the NBA restart has been interesting, entertaining. They've found new ways to make it enjoyable to watch the games. We're getting different camera angles. We're getting the virtual fans, which sometimes look horrible, sometimes are great.
Kerry Kittle's in the crowd for the Nets, I think it was.
Yeah. No, I mean, and they had, I think it was Aaron Gordon's parents, but they couldn't get them next to each other. Yes. So there was a random guy here and they're like over here and here. There's been a lot of great things about the NBA being back. So honorary wet boy goes out to the best commish in sports in America. There's so many shout outs I want to give, but I will keep it short. And I will just say that the Houston Rockets have been one of my favorite teams to watch all year. And the explosion of Brody back to being, looked at as a star again. He's the guy. He is my wet boy. Start the year off. James Harden did amazing things. The Rockets in general have been just, I can't not watch them. They are electric on TV. They have everything going for them. They're playing small ball. They are doing disgusting things out there as far as their defense. I mean, like Rocco had 4 blocks and like 2 steals. Mm-hmm. He's averaging ridiculous numbers playing, center, small forward, power forward, point guard, and shooting guard.
Who was it last night? Soapy and I were watching the end of the Bucks Rockets game, which, by the way, any Houston Rocket fans out there, your announcers sound like Jim Cornette and AJ Styles to me. And I can't get over your play-by-play guy sounds like Jim Cornette. Your color guy sounds like AJ Styles. And it was fucking with me the whole game. But I think it was Gerald Green late in the game. Catches it in the corner, off balance 3, makes it, and it's like, well, they're probably going to beat the Bucks now. And they did.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Russ, I want to give him credit. His energy was insane. Like, the man doesn't slow down, and that's the crazy thing about him. He is a cardio monster out there, athletically in a different league, and he will do everything for this team. I love everything about it. So Russell Westbrook gets the official first wet boy of the show.
And it's great, Dave, because you go from the first one of MVP Sports Live, and I am going the first wet boy that is a non-NBA player. Because all the wet boys before this have been NBA players, and some may be confused with the wet boy or the player, what team he plays for, but I am giving the first non-NBA wet boy to Luis Robert of the Chicago White Sox, because there was something, and this goes with a little bit of a story. So Luis Robert had a great week. Like, you look at it, fucking 40% on base percentage. He's like a fucking 714 slugging percentage. Like, he's cracking the ball. The game he had on Sunday, yesterday, against the Royals was like phenomenal at the leadoff position. And the little story that goes into this also is I saw a clip. It was from the post game after the White Sox played the Indians. And it was the game where Madrigal was batting cleanup. And his average that game was like a fucking 0.83. So he didn't do well that game. And they asked Ozzie Guillen about it. Like, the question they asked him was, he hit this at cleanoff before in his career. And Ozzie's like, well, that was way before he was with the White Sox.
Yeah.
And Ozzie talked to him. He's like, this kid, Robert, why the hell are you having him bat 8? He's like, have him bat leadoff. Get your best players some more at bats. Like, and they're like, well, I think Rick wants to like ease him, and he's basically like, fuck that, ease him in, no, get him more at bats. And that's why Sunday I was happy to see Robert bat leadoff, because when you bat leadoff, you arguably get the most batting attempts of the team. And the way he played on Sunday's game, getting the most attempts, I was like, first off, a clap, because I didn't think Rick Renteria had the capacity to make changes, because he's usually stuck in his ways, kind of a thing. But making that change, he's showing why he's worth the money, why we talked about him on Superfans back when we did that. And I wanted to go ahead, give him some love, give him his first wet boy ever.
There we go. 2 corrections.
1,
Joe Green, no longer a Rocket. Okay. So you must have meant Jeff
Gerald. Was it Gerald Green?
No, Joe Green not playing.
Okay. I
Jeff
thought it
Green,
was Green.
maybe?
I'm going to look it up then. I'm going to look
Jeff
up the
Green.
box score.
I'm going to guess you meant Jeff.
Maybe.
Because that's the only other Green who's playing in the NBA.
I don't know. I thought it was Green.
That would be Jeff. They look nothing alike, which is great.
I'll look it up. I'll make sure. Well, the thing, and this is a side note too. Yeah. I love the like sayings that they have on the back of the jerseys. Yep. But here's the only complaint I have about them. I don't know all the players sometimes. To where it's like, maybe it's a bench warmer. It's like we were watching it, the one game, I can't remember. It's like, oh, is that player? Oh, it has to be. His name's long enough. Oh, wait, no, that's not his name. Oh, shoot, who is that? Because he's a bench warmer for the Magic, and I'm not used to seeing that. Let me look up who it was, because I'll find out right here.
They only play 8 deep on that team, so it's either like Jeff Green, Ben McLemore, or like
it wasn't Harden,
Austin
it
Rivers.
Wasn't Brody. That's all I know. Here, let's see. Fourth quarter.
Was it House? There's literally only like 5 guys it could be then. Anyway, you look that up. I want to give a shout out to the comment section.
It was PJ Tucker.
It was
PJ Tucker made a 23-point 3-pointer, 23-footer to make it 112-109 with 2:30 left, and it was like a fucking beautiful shot. So it was PJ Tucker. I'm sorry for that.
Okay,
but go ahead. What you were saying?
Shout out to the Twitch section for those watching us live today. Thank you, because I don't know that there was any heads up about this. This was just like, we're doing it. Mm-hmm. You can be there if you want to be there. So shout out to the Twitch section keeping us company, and Soapy dropping the TJ Warren snub. Look, TJ Warren popped off last night. I give him credit. He is a walking bucket. That is all he's ever been in his career. Go down as one of the worst trades of all time for the Suns. You know, they have to give up a second rounder and TJ Warren for nothing, for cash considerations. Great job, Suns. You nailed it. Everybody was so confused when that happened. But he's killing out there. Shout out, because Sabonis is out. So, you know, somebody's got to score on that Pacers team. He's doing a hell of a job.
So, Dave, I'm going to ask you this, because this just popped into my head. I had this thought earlier, but I didn't know if we were going to want to do it. And I'll just ask you here live on the show. We're this is how the sausage is made kind of a thing. Absolutely. Should we, for Wet Boys, do 3, where you get one, I get one, and then every single morning, maybe like sometimes it's at midnight.
We do a poll?
I just make a post on the Patreon page for patrons.
Maybe Discord.
To put down their name, like who would be your Wet Boy, and whoever gets mentioned the most, and whoever like it seems like is the resounding vote, the patrons then get their own Wet Boy. And we get a patron
I like
Wet
the
Boy
idea.
every Monday.
I say we do it in Discord though, just because it's easier and a lot of people are active in there.
Well, yeah, I would. So I would put it, because not everyone I've noticed not everyone who's a patron is in the Discord.
Gotcha.
So I would do a patron post, and then in our announcements tab in Discord, I would throw it in there.
Sorry,
so
patron. If you're a patron, you need to be in Discord. Sorry, that's the rules.
Yeah.
Them's the rules.
Them's the rules.
Pat, look, we can't beat non-shitty teams right now. We're working on it.
Talk about the White Sox?
Yeah.
Okay.
When we face a good team, I mean, you got to admit, baseball started off with a bang for Sox. I know this is in the Sox section, but I'm just going to drop a little quick.
Go ahead.
Runs. All the runs. We hitting all the balls out the parks. It's us and the Twins. It was like every game. It was I think it was 10 plus runs in their first 3 games. One side, then the other, then the other. It was insane. I mean, it's just hitting is just monstrous right now to start the season. So,
and I mean, there was one game that one of the Cubs fans I follow on Twitter, it was against the Indians, and Cease only lasted like 2 1/3. And he posted the box score, and he said, "I would like to revisit the Jose Quintana trade, please," because that's who we gave him. Cease and Eloy were 2 of the main pieces we gave you for Quintana. But the last 2 things we'll jump into. This one's kind of old news, but we hadn't talked about it because we've been on hiatus, Dave. So I want to give our thoughts about it for, of course, our boy Easy in the Discord, one of our loyal patrons who is a Knick fan through and through all the heartbreak and sadness that it is to be a Knicks fan. I don't know. Yeah. Like, I know how you do it because I was there as a Cubs fan. Like, the Cubs were the lovable losers. So, like, I know how you feel, but I'm just glad I'm not there anymore. But the Knicks seem to have found their guy, and Tom Thibodeau is their new coach. The article that I'm looking at is from Steve Serby of the New York Post. I just wanted to read this one thing before I ask you about him. He goes, the question is, you'll probably laugh at this. How do you feel about the fact that Knicks fans are viewing you as the savior? And Thibodeau said, laugh. It's an honor and a privilege to be able there. I don't fool myself into thinking that it's going to require a lot of work. Just come in and give everything you have every day. Do it for each other. Do it for the city. Do it for the team. Put the team first. And if we keep doing the right things, the results will take care of themselves.
Yeah, classic answer.
What are your thoughts on Tibby being the coach of the good old Knicks?
I'm extremely conflicted.
Okay.
If I can be honest with you guys.
Okay.
I think the Knicks made the move to go after the best available coach, not necessarily the best fit for their organization at the time.
Okay.
I think this is one of those moves where if they're truly patient, it will pay off. But if it's the expectation that, hey, in 2.5 years, he's going to be out because he couldn't flip over a team from the bottom of the league to the top, like that's one of those situations I look at. And Tom Thibodeau is known for a lot of things. He gets the most out of his players who play hard. If you don't have a great work ethic, you will not get along with Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah.
That was very clear from his days in Chicago. That was very clear from his days in
if you're
Minnesota.
a rookie.
If you're a rookie, there's a line in the sand that's like, hey, you have to go out of your way to prove to this man that you're worth the minutes on the floor, because otherwise he will drag Tim Thomas off of retirement and put him out there for 38 minutes a game. He doesn't give a shit.
Hey, man, Joakim Noah is showing some good minutes in the bubble. Maybe Tom says, hey, let's bring him back to New York, baby.
I think they're still paying him.
Bobby Bonilla style.
It was an awful contract. But yeah, like I halfway expect Luol Deng to sign a contract with the Knicks this offseason. It's one of those bad jokes, but like he's got his locker room guys. You know, he's very familiar with several players around the league. He's been a in-house coach for several teams in the past 2 years. I spent some time working with different systems, talking to them about what they can do defensively. He's a very smart guy. Like I think he's an excellent coach. It just comes down to where the Knicks are right now is at the base of a rebuild. You have RJ Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, Kevin Knox, Frank, and Julius Randle, if you want to include him as your core right now. They've got a couple other young pieces who don't maybe hit my line in the sand, but they're on the team. I think that they're not a team that's going to flip it over in one season. My concern is that he might want to. Yeah, he does have Taj there already, Sam. I love that.
I was going to say, Taj ain't going anywhere next season.
Taji boy going to be there again. Bobby P, you need your small ball fives.
He's got a club option for 15.7. Are they going to think he's worth it?
I would not, but you know what? It's the Knicks, and that's the problem.
And you are right. They're paying Joakim Noah $6.4 million for this year and the next 2 years.
Yeah, because that was an awful deal.
And they're paying Alonzo Trier $3.5 for this year.
Yeah, that's fine. But no, I think that the question, or I guess my concern is, what direction are they going to take it? Are they going to let him try to rebuild with a young team? Almost it's like a precursor to where the Bulls were when he came in. He took over a Bulls team that had a couple pieces on there that looked good, and it was just a matter of like, okay, how do I dial them in and get them to be excellent? And I think this will be a challenge because this is like a year before then, maybe 2 years before then, where he's starting out with this team. And I just hope that they don't mortgage their future and try to move on future picks or pieces they've got in place now and move them off to get veterans in, because like, we need to give up 3 draft picks to get Chris Paul here to be our point guard of the future and stabilize the ship. They're like, no, like as good as Chris Paul is, and he's an excellent leader of a team, but like that is not what you do with a team that is as bad as the Knicks.
Well, I got two thoughts about this, and one's very short. The other is we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
The first thing is I can't wait to see how much better defensively Frank becomes. Because if he's already good, but I feel like he could become next level defensive under Tom Thibodeau. Like I feel like Thibs is going to push him to a level higher than we ever thought Frank could go to.
If you trust those blog boys already, he's all NBA defense.
Yeah, that too.
I love Frank, by the way, but
the other thing I worry about is the draft. And the reason why I worry about the draft now for the Knicks is, you know, Dave, how like there's certain people out there, certain guys, certain girls that are like, they have a type. And it's like, oh man, they always do the same thing after a breakup. They always do the same thing going into a relationship. And it's just rinse and repeat. Well, Tom Thibodeau's thing that he likes to do when he comes to a team is not actually draft a player in the first round. He trades that pick away. When he was with the Bulls had the 17th overall pick that year. Mm-hmm. What happened was we picked Kevin Seraphin, from France, and we traded him to the Washington Wizards. Now, in that deal, great deal, I would say, because we got Captain Kirk out of that deal. We got Kurt Heinrich. No. I apologize. They got Kurt from us. Bad deal.
Yeah, I'd say they couldn't.
So they acquired Kurt Heinrich, Kevin Seraphin, and cash considerations, our favorite player ever. Yeah. In exchange for the draft rights to Vladimir Vitryminko, who I've never heard before. Never heard him before. I tried my best. And then obviously the 2016 draft, we all know and love because it was the, or was it the one before? Basically when he started in Minnesota, boom, the Jimmy Butler trade.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, he wasn't the GM when he started with the Bulls.
Yeah.
That was not on him. That decision was not made by him solely. I'm sure he was consulted, perhaps, by our front office of stooges.
I mean, Garpax probably went, "Hey, Thibs, what do you think?" I don't know.
Yeah, that's already a concern. So, but I agree. It is a thought of, you know, with this high draft pick where they have a chance to hit a superstar. What do you do?
And the Minnesota one, I want to correct myself. It was his second year with the team, not his first.
Yeah, I say the first year they picked up the point guard of the future Chris Dunn, the real KD.
And then they traded him. So
yeah, after he played for 4 minutes a game. Because he did not deserve the trust. And he was an old guy coming out of college. He was a senior coming out of Providence.
Big oof.
So that's why it's the question of like, the Knicks clearly need a point guard, but can they afford to, if they don't get, you know, say Alonzo Ball at the very top of this draft, if they fall down at all on the board, you know, would they go after an older player like an Obi Toppin who has, you know, some elite potential, but also they have a certain backlog at a position that they put themselves into?
The fourth. I mean, they could basically just let Bobby go. Like, why pay him $15.7 million? Yeah, but I mean, at least that's one problem. That's $15 million off your books if you just let Bobby go.
No, I agree.
We love Bobby, but just let him go.
$15 million.
I'm intrigued for this.
Yeah.
Because it seems like it should be a good thing, but at the same time, I was excited for Derek Fisher, and we all know how that ended up.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, Derek Fisher. He hasn't had coaching experience, but man, he's going to be a guy that's going to...
Phil Jackson going to run the triangle. Never mind.
I'm an idiot. That's what that was. I still run... There's a video on, I think it's on the Onside Kick channel, of me talking about it, and I liked it. I liked Derek Fisher when he got hired, and oof, that's a cold take right there. But the last thing we're going to talk about today, basketball, of course, has to do with the bubble and the restart. And this comes from, I was watching the Spurs-Grizzlies game. Spurs beat the Grizzlies. And the Spurs announcers mentioned how the Grizzlies are not big fans of this NBA restart.
Can't imagine why.
Because, to put it in your words, Dave, it was designed to screw them.
Yes.
And after 2 games, the Grizzlies have lost both of them. both to the
As expected,
Blazers.
they had the toughest schedule coming into the bubble for the remainder of the season.
So they lost to the Blazers in overtime, where I think they led by 20, right? Or they were down 20.
16. No,
Okay.
they led by
20.
I think they led by like 16 or so.
Yeah.
But it was heartbreaking. They just they could not stop anyone driving through the paint.
Yeah.
And then people started getting hot. Gary Trent Jr., fucking shout out. That boy is knocking down shots. Yeah. Second-year player, stepped up, no Rodney Hood, no problem.
Dookie.
Gary Trent Jr. is your forward of the future.
Yep. Oh man, he was, and I even mentioned to you, I was like, how old is he? When did he go to Duke? He looks like a 5-year pro. No, only like third year, and like he's as old as fucking like.
This is the second year.
Yeah, he was Wendell and Bagley. He was on that team.
I remember talking about him in the draft, and it was like, all the guy does is knock down threes from the outside. How come no one wants to take him?
And the Blazers were like, thank you. Just like how the fuck did the Nuggets get ball? How did you go all the way in the second?
There. I warned everyone who would listen about Bull.
Oh, I think I did too. And people were like, oh, Ricky, you liked Mo Bamba, so we're not going to listen to you on Bull. But basically, the question of this is about the play-in tournament. We had a little bit of a talk with this with the patrons in Discord, or with, I should say, our real MVPs in Discord. Let me explain how the play-in tournament works for those of you who do not know. And I'm getting this from NBA.com, where they say, how will the play-in tournament work? If the team with the 8th best record in its conference is more than 4 games ahead of the team with the 9th best record, no play-in tournament will be necessary. Mm-hmm. However, if a team is within 4 games of the 8th slot, there will be a best of 2 series between the 8th and the 9th team. So I'm just going to use the example, the San Antonio Spurs. Because right now, San Antonio sits at the 9th seed. They are 21 games back, and the Grizzlies are 19 games back. So that is less than 4. Mm-hmm. That means that if the season ended today, the Spurs and Grizzlies would play. All the Grizzlies would have to do is win once, and boom, they'd be in the playoffs. However, if they lost twice to the Spurs
in a
row, they could lose that 8th seed. To me, I think this is unfair, only because, like I said in our Discord, I feel like changing the rule. I know COVID fucked everything up.
Yep.
But changing the rules in the middle of a season, something this magnitude, shouldn't happen. Like, it should just be best record at the end, because technically, I would even throw this out there. Every team in the West is within 4 games of the Grizzlies, so all of them should be playing games? What do you think? What do you think about this, Dave? The play-in tournament and the Grizzlies, should they be upset?
Yeah, no, I mean, they have every right to be upset about it. They earned their way into the playoffs, led by, Rookie of the Year John Morant, putting up numbers that haven't been seen before by a rookie, except for a very elite club.
Who looks like a pro already.
He's disgusting. He's everything I had hoped for. So, again, I'm just, if any teams need scouting help, just another guy.
Dave finds this little guy out of Murray State that no one's talking about, and then everybody's talking about.
I'm just saying. But no, I totally understand why they're unhappy about it and how they feel it's unfair. But the NBA is doing what it can to make up to other teams. Like, hey, we get it. The season is, your chance to make a comeback, crazy run post All-Star break didn't happen. What are you doing over there, Chief? I can't not look at.
So I spilled, when I drank the end of my water, I spilt a little bit, and I wiped it off my face. But then I patted here. I'm like, that's not where it hit. And then I patted here, and I felt the wetness. I was like, "Ooh, that's where it landed." That's where it landed.
Here. This man's just toweling himself off on the side. But yeah, no. Is it fair? No, but nothing is fair about this NBA season right now. So I think at the end of the day, I would love to see a team like the Spurs, especially the Blazers, who I think have had one of the most interesting paths to this playoff race of every team. Obviously Nurkic had been out for the entirety of the year with that horrible injury at the end of last year, and Zach Collins missed time. Rodney Hood out. They picked up Carmelo Anthony. They're getting amazing performances from Gary Trent Jr. Mario Hezonja can't hold a jockstrap out there. Like, there are so many stories going on this team, and I really want that. I would love to watch them be a play-in, because I think the matchup 1-8 for the West would be insane then. But I feel like at the end of the day, this tournament was entirely about Zion Williamson, and he unfortunately could not get into basketball shape. He left the bubble due to some family stuff going on, and when he came back, he was clearly not in game shape. They've been putting him out for 15 minutes a night. He looks atrocious on defense. Offensively, he's interesting, but like he's such a negative for his team right now. It's incredibly disappointing.
And Ja and Zion will play tonight. They play tonight as we're recording this on Monday. And if the Grizzlies lose this game, like I'm looking at some of the schedules, and you say Grizzlies have the hardest.
Yes,
I then looked at the Trailblazers schedule, and although like Rockets, Nuggets, and I can't remember that third team they play, are hardest, because I closed the tab on my computer screen. Their last three games are laughable to me. The 76ers are laughable right now. The Dallas Mavericks, I can't believe the only reason they clinched is because somebody else lost yesterday.
Look,
so like
they're
they're
the best
0-2
offense in like the last 40 years.
Yeah,
what they're doing is insane.
And like
they can't close a game, but their offensive gameplay is amazing.
And then their last game, the Blazers, is against the Brooklyn Nets. So like,
by the way, spoilers: Zion's 1 of 6 to start the game.
Okay, they're playing right now as we're recording this. So yeah, I mean they're playing right now. The Grizzlies, I wouldn't be unhappy. I think it's bullshit, but what can you do? What really can you do? And before we wrap up the show, I just got a little bit of a shout out news over the weekend. Dave, you should be happy because the draft, no. For the draft that happens in October, you no longer have to hear me mention the name Ayo Dosunmu, because not only did Ayo put out a video which set Illinois Nation ablaze, Dave, because in the video he mentioned, and I remember the quote vividly, he says, "I'm not chasing the NBA. The NBA will always be there. I'm chasing greatness, and I have to go win a national championship first." Putting big hopes on it. Kofi Coburn also coming the day after was like, "I'm coming back also." So not only do we have those two, we've got basically Curbelo and Adam Miller, and Dosunmu mentioned this in his press conference. The last time Dosunmu and Miller played together, they just won a state championship for Morgan Park. No big deal. So I'm happy. Put on a damn mask. We need college basketball next season. That's your job, folks. Wear a damn mask. We need college basketball because the Illini need to hoist that trophy.
I understand your excitement, and I love it. I think the Illinois basketball...
Don't rain on my parade, Dave.
It's been a long time since we saw greatness. Last time around, what a run. What a run in the tourney. But I think college sports is a conversation for another day.
I know. Everything I've seen is like, put on a damn mask. We need college basketball because of this. Also, your boy Luka Garza going back to Iowa.
Yeah, I know.
So that's gonna be fun.
How many more big guys can I put back in college? Hang on. But I can't wait. We're gonna start talking. Go ahead and wrap up the show so I can.
This has been MVP Sports Live. Thank you guys in the Twitch channel. What was it? We mentioned Soapy, Pat, Sam. Mine still says connecting to chat, so I can't see who else is there. I just am going off of the ones that Dave had mentioned. This is a new brainchild for us, a live show each and every day. For right now, it's going to be 4:30 Central, but if I will tell you now, when Rona goes away, the time of the show will change because eventually work is going to happen. So for right now, it's 4:30 Central each and every Monday through Friday. You can get your sports fix with us, going through everything. We're going to get fan participation soon. The Patreon is... So we're in a tricky situation. I froze the Patreon for August because I still have to update our patrons about the changes so that they can make changes this month in case they don't have something at their tier that they're currently at that they want to change. Eventually, patrons will have the fan access. We're going to have listener questions on the show and fan interaction that way. The Twitch chat, like Dave was bringing into the show today. And, of course, Wet Boys, the best part of the show every day.
Yeah.
But
I love that pivot. You're just like, how about if our patrons get a Wet Boy? Yes, let's do it.
I love it. I was already thinking about, like, I think about things, and then it's like, let me stew on this before I ask Dave. Because I just don't want to just throw ideas out. I want to
you did it live on the air anyway.
Yeah,
you put
but
me on the spot like that.
But like I've been stewing on it to where I was going to ask you anyways, and it came up, so why not ask you now? Also, stay tuned. Our new game show, MVP Games Live, will be next right after this. We're going to take a short break, get everything set up, but that's going to do it. If you're watching on YouTube, obviously after the fact, leave a comment down below. Let us know what you feel about any of the things we talked about today, but that's going to do it for MVP Sports Live. Games Live's coming up next. As always, have a good day, everybody.